Good day, this is James Spencer from the Actors Studio located in Long Beach, California. This is episode 4 in my Acting 101 series for my students and anyone there on YouTube that would like more information on acting. So today let's get into talking about clarity in your acting and how to create good diction and good clarity. A lot of people in the U.S., of course, come from various areas, and everybody has different dialects and different manners of speech. American dialects can sometimes, depending on where you're from, be difficult to understand in your monologues. So I'm going to give you some basic tips on how to have great clarity in your acting and in your monologues. First thing I want to talk about is placement of where you speak from. So I'm going to demonstrate first incorrect diction. A lot of people talk very, very back on their throat. I'm going to kind of do that now. And if I sort of talk back on my throat, I either sound raspy or I sound breathy. And that's very difficult to understand. So making sure when you're speaking, you're not speaking back on the throat. Okay, that's number one. Another thing that could happen, I see this quite a bit in California, is what we call tongue retraction. A lot of people have a lazy tongue, or they pull their tongue back in their mouth back when they're talking. And it sort of sounds like this, like, dude, I'm from California, and I kind of sound a little swallowed when I'm talking. Okay, so that's one I see here in California quite a bit. So watching that your tongue stays relaxed and flat when you're talking. Okay. Another thing is nasality. And that is like just an extremely nasal tone. And people think that comes from putting the air up in your nose. Actually, true nasality that's incorrect comes from tension in your jaw and in your face. So like if I kind of lock my face up like this, I'm going to I see this quite a bit, by the way, with my students and friends in Boston. The Boston accent, you'll kind of see this kind of a talk. It's very tight. Sometimes that can get difficult to understand. Okay. So again, relaxing the jaw, the face, keeping the tongue flat. Another good tip is air should be placed on the hard palate, right behind your front teeth. If I yawn and I talk from there, do you see how much more clarity I have than when I put my air back on my throat? Very difficult to understand. The mic doesn't pick that up well, right? Did you hear the difference? Okay, so let me do that again. Air on the hard palate, nice, clean, open diction. Air back on the throat, very difficult to understand. Okay, so those are a few tips. So you want to practice that. Air on the hard palate, frontal resonance. Your face should vibrate. You should feel like if you went, hey, right in here under your nose, you should feel vibration in your face. Okay, keeping the tongue flat, no tongue retraction. Okay, keeping your jaw relaxed. Next thing in terms of clarity is just talk slower. When people get nervous, they race through their monologues. A beginner might, I'm going to do this monologue from last time, Everyone's Chasing Something. This is by Joseph Arnon. I'm just going to read this monologue bad. And I'm just going to talk fast and slur everything together. So this is totally incorrect. After what Johnny said to me, it was just he passed away too. Wasn't bad enough that my dad died, but wasn't bad enough that my kid sister... Whoa, okay, really hard to understand, no clarity. Okay, so what you want to do is slow down when you talk, relax. Another good thing, in addition to just slowing down, is to be sure that at the ends of words and ends of sentences, you're not going so fast that you leave off a letter. You don't want to over enunciate, because that will sound very weird too. Like if I'm after what Johnny said to me, if I'm doing that, it sounds a little weird. But like, for example, where the line goes, wasn't bad enough that my father died. You don't want to leave off the D and go, wasn't bad enough, wasn't bad enough that my father died. See the difference? Really watching that you get the ends of words and sentences, okay? What will also help this quite a bit is you always breathe with the punctuation. So take your breath after a comma. So like, for example, after what Johnny said to me, breath, it was like he passed away too. Okay, so that would be the sentence. Now, I'm not really acting it yet. I'm just showing you clarity first. Okay, but if I ran that without the, without the commas, after what Johnny said to me, it was he's passed away too. See, it doesn't sound clear. It sounds rushed. So working on pacing yourself by breathing with punctuation, breathing with the commas, taking a pause after a period. Also, we know that certain types of punctuation reflect different moods. Like we know that, obviously a question mark is a question. Usually our voice goes up on a question. How are you today? Okay. So, kind of watching that, or if it asks for an exclamation point, and it's like maybe, how are you doing today? And then exclamation point, I'm great. Then you want to add more emphasis. How are you doing today? I'm great. Okay. So using your volume to also help you. Okay. So those are things you can do. So let's review. Talk slower. Watch the ends of words. Talk from here. Hard palate. Another thing you should do is record yourself so you can hear your acting and monologues back. Okay. We will be talking next week on the health of the voice. And that's also very important. I tell my actors that your lifestyle will affect if you're going to be a good actor or not. And so we'll be looking at some health tips. Everybody lives in different climates, but, we know that weather can affect the voice. Pollution affects the voice. Dairy affects the voice. Alcohol affects the voice. Smoking affects the voice. So we're going to talk about some simple things you can do in the next episode to stay radiantly healthy. Practice what we talked about today in your vocal clarity. So as you're starting on your monologues, what I would do is, watch your punctuation. If you're missing a punctuation, maybe circle it in pencil. Practice in small sections. Check that you have clarity. If you have a strong, difficult accent, some people do. They have like a very, very heavy, Brooklyn accent, Southern accent, Midwest accent. If you have a strong accent, I will also recommend that you study what they used to call it the transatlantic dialect. What that was in Hollywood, it was adding a little bit of sort of a pseudo-British accent to help create clarity. So, for example, in certain parts of the U.S., a lot of people have a very strong ending R. And that R, if I do it kind of long, R, how are you? The way we were. If I do too much of that, it's sort of ugly. So they talk about softening that up by yawning and leaving off ending R's a little bit, or hitting them softly. If I leave off my R's altogether at the end of the words, I will start to sound more British. The way we were. How are you? Are you over there? Instead of, are you over there? Now, if I do too much of that, I'm going to start sounding like Harry Potter. But I can make my R's at the ends of the words a little softer. Over there. And that's clear compared to if I happen to have an accent where those R's are strong. Over there. You might hear that, if I'm like, kind of a different parts like Oklahoma, I hear that, in different areas. Okay, so that's something that you can look into if you need it. We need unification of what we call the standard Hollywood dialect. So, like for example, certain words are pronounced completely different in different areas. One I'm going to use as a strong one is like sometimes with a very strong Brooklyn accent, you might hear instead of girls, goyles. Over there, the goyles. Okay, you might hear something like that. Well, in Hollywood, you don't want to do that if you're acting. So it's about kind of uniforming your dialect to a standard Americanized dialect compared to if you happen to have a very strong accent. Again, clearing that up a little bit. Okay, but starting with these basic rules that I talked about: talking in the front of your mouth, slowing down, breathing, at the punctuation, yawning when you talk. Just kind of opening up as you talk will help you quite a bit. Okay. Another word of advice is our vocal volume changes depending on what type of acting we are doing. If I am on stage, obviously my volume probably needs to be louder to project to the end of the auditorium compared to if I have a camera right in my face, I don't have to use so much volume. Okay, so what tends to happen with beginner actors that have had a little bit of staging at their high schools or whatever is when they get on camera for the first time, they tend to talk really loud like this right in your face, and because they're used to being on stage. So you got to watch that you listen back and adjust your volume and your speed and so forth to the medium you're working in. Obviously, too, with voiceover artists, we can, change the sound of our voice we'll talk in another video about timbre changes between, chest voice, head voice, falsetto, and things. And things sound different on different types of microphones depending on if you have reverb and, different effects on your microphone. And nowadays, as you know, even, most computers, even GarageBand has hundreds of different settings where you can sound like, make your voice sound higher, lower, like a robotic, so forth. So what you want to do is if you are a voiceover artist is you usually just talk naturally enunciating, but then you add on those effects. If you try to say, I'm going to be robotic, and then you add on a robotic effect, it doesn't work. Okay, so it's always really what we're going to be talking about is staying as natural as possible and as clear as possible in your speech. Okay, so have a great day, and I look forward to hearing from you. You can leave messages in the comment section. Also, if you are in the U.S. and looking for an acting coach, myself as well as I have some faculty, we do online coaching through the U.S. And I have, right now I'm pretty booked, but I have a couple of morning times available for at the studio. Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day.